The planet Virelia shimmered under twin suns, its floating crystal cities glinting in the light like scattered stars across a deep emerald sky. Bioluminescent forests stretched beyond the cities, their glowing flora casting gentle hues on the ground below. The air carried a subtle hum of energy, a living pulse that marked the intelligence of the planet. It was beautiful, serene, yet fragile, an empire at the brink of a silent war. Princess Lyraya, heir to Virelia's throne, stood on the edge of a floating balcony in the royal palace. Her silver hair fluttered in the warm breeze, and her violet eyes reflected both pride and worry. Though she was young, she carried the weight of her people's safety on her shoulders. Lyraya had always felt the loneliness that came with power. The advisors who surrounded her were cautious, calculating, and often quick to doubt. Few truly believed in her instincts. The Zarkon Empire was gathering strength on the outskirts of known space. Their scouts had been seen near Virelia's borders, probing defenses and mapping routes. Lyraya knew the reports. The Zarkons were ruthless, far more advanced, and far more numerous than her own forces. Yet despite the danger, she refused to let fear rule her. A leader must act, and she would not shy away. Suddenly, the palace sensors detected an unusual reading near the outer forests. A high-speed object had entered Virelia's atmosphere. Lyraya frowned. Spacecraft occasionally crossed the skies, but this was different. Its trajectory was erratic, uncontrolled, almost desperate. "I will investigate," she said softly. Her advisors protested, but she had learned long ago that hesitation could be deadly. She summoned a small team of elite scouts and set out on one of the palace's floating transports. The wind of the forests whipped past as they descended, and the hum of alien energy grew stronger, almost like the planet itself was aware of the intruder. When they arrived, the scene was astonishing. A human spaceship, small, battered, and clearly damaged, lay half-buried in a grove of glowing trees. Smoke rose from its hull, and the faint hiss of coolant escaped in intermittent bursts. Lyraya's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen a human before. None of her people had. Humans were considered rare visitors, sometimes myths even among alien scholars. Cautiously, Lyraya and her scouts approached the wreck. The ship's door was slightly ajar, and inside lay a figure. He was tall by Virelian standards, with fair skin and messy, dark hair. His clothes were torn, smudged with dirt and burns, yet he moved with a calm efficiency, checking the damage around him. He didn't seem afraid of the forest or its glowing creatures, nor of the scouts watching him. "Who are you?" Lyraya asked, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. The human looked up. His eyes were a deep brown, alert, intelligent, and unafraid. "I'm Ethan. I come from a planet called Earth." His accent was strange, harsh in some places, soft in others, but understandable. Lyraya tilted her head, observing him carefully. Her scouts whispered among themselves. Humans were rare and unpredictable. Some were said to be strong, cunning, and fearless. Others were fragile and easily overwhelmed. This one, however, carried an unusual aura of calm determination. "You are injured," Lyraya noted. She stepped closer. Ethan nodded, brushing ash from his sleeve. "I'll be fine. The ship took most of the damage," he replied. "But I need shelter. I can't survive long out here." Her instincts told her he was honest. There was no deception in his eyes. Against her advisor's objections, she made the decision. He would come, with her, to the palace. The journey back was quiet. Lyraya rode beside Ethan, her mind racing with questions. He was human, but he carried none of the arrogance or fearlessness often attributed to his kind. He observed the forests and floating rocks with fascination, asking questions about the strange energy fields and the luminescent trees. His curiosity was genuine, Back at the palace, Lyraya had him cleaned and tended to by the royal medics. He moved carefully, adapting quickly to alien medicine and customs. Lyraya watched as he examined the palace's crystal walls and energy conduits with interest, his fingers tracing lines of power like a scientist deciphering a puzzle. "You are very attentive," she said, a small smile forming. "I like to understand how things work." Ethan replied simply, "It helps me survive. And sometimes, it helps me solve problems." Lyraya's smile widened. There was something refreshing about his simplicity, his practical way of thinking. For centuries, Virelia had valued psychic ability, tradition, and loyalty. But sometimes, intelligence and adaptability were overlooked. This human might bring something new. Days passed. Ethan adapted quickly to the palace and its customs. He learned the basic language patterns, though his accent remained foreign. He was careful not to offend, and he watched carefully how the court operated. Lyraya noticed he didn't just observe, he analyzed, suggesting small improvements to security routines, resource allocations, and communication methods. Some of his ideas were unconventional, even reckless by Virelian standards. But they had a practical logic that could not be ignored. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, a forest predator, a glowing, four-legged creature with translucent skin and sharp claws appeared. The palace guards hesitated, unsure how to handle it without harming it or themselves. Ethan acted without hesitation. He quickly assessed the situation, creating a small trap using nearby vines and reflective crystals. The creature was trapped without harm, and the guards stared in astonishment. "You are very different from any alien I've met," Lyraya said quietly as the predator scampered away, now unharmed. "I guess humans are different," Ethan replied with a small shrug. "We adapt. We find ways to survive without always relying on strength or numbers." Her violet eyes studied him. There was courage in him, yes, but also creativity, intelligence, and calm under pressure. Traits her advisors often lacked. She felt a strange sense of hope. Perhaps this human stranger could be the ally she needed. That night, Lyraya could not sleep. She sat by her balcony, looking at the twin moons rising over Virelia's forests. Ethan, now a guest in the palace, was settling into a small room nearby. Yet his presence lingered in her thoughts. His calm, his intelligence, his unexpected bravery. She had never met anyone like him. She recalled the reports of the Zarkon Empire. Their scouts were near, studying Virelia, looking for weaknesses. Her advisors were hesitant, slow to act. But Ethan, this human, had a different perspective. He could see solutions she had not yet considered. By morning, she made a decision. She would not merely observe this human. She would learn from him, trust him, and perhaps even rely on him. In a world threatened by conquest, she realized that strength could come from the most unexpected places. As dawn broke, the palace shimmered in the soft sunlight. Lyraya and Ethan walked together through the crystal halls, discussing strategies, defenses, and ideas for improving the palace's security. Though Ethan had arrived as a stranger, already he was becoming something more, a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and courage in a world teetering on the edge of war. For the first time, Lyraya felt a glimmer of confidence that her people might survive the storm to come, not because of her title or her psychic powers alone, but because of the human stranger who had become her unexpected strength. Little did they know, the Zarkon scouts were already observing the palace, intrigued by the new human presence. The true test of survival, trust, and leadership was only beginning. The crystal towers of Virelia shone brightly under the morning sun, reflecting 1,000 colors across the floating city. The air hummed with energy as Princess Lyraya moved through the halls, her mind still heavy with concern over the approaching Zarkon Empire. She had spent the previous nights thinking about the human, Ethan, and the strange confidence he brought into her life. Ethan had settled into the palace with surprising ease. He moved through the crystal corridors as if he belonged there, though every movement carried the careful observation of someone unfamiliar with alien technology. Lyrea had watched him study the palace's energy grids, the levitating bridges, and even the palace's defense turrets. He asked questions, tested theories, and suggested improvements with a calm certainty that unnerved her advisors. "You know," Lyrea said one morning, following Ethan to a balcony overlooking the city, "I've never seen anyone, alien or otherwise, approach our systems with such direct thinking." Ethan looked out at the glimmering spires. "Sometimes the simplest way is the best way. Complicated doesn't always mean better." His eyes scanned the horizon, alert. "And from what I've heard, your enemies think complicated. That's their weakness." Lyrea frowned thoughtfully. "The Zarkons. They are patient hunters and ruthless. My people are strong, but we are few compared to them. I do not want to risk unnecessary bloodshed." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance." Over the following days, Lyrea began training with Ethan in ways she had never imagined. They started small tactics in the forest surrounding the palace, learning how to anticipate movement and predict enemy strategy. Lyrea's psychic abilities gave her an edge, but Ethan's practical perspective showed her how to combine intuition with logic. "Think like water," Ethan told her one morning as they crouched behind glowing trees. "Move around the obstacles, not through them. Use the environment. Don't just attack what you see. Attack what they will try to do next." Lyrea followed his instructions carefully. Using her psychic powers, she could sense movement and intentions, but she had not considered using them to create illusions and manipulate terrain. Ethan guided her through simulations, and slowly, her confidence grew. The princess, who once hesitated, now took initiative, directing imaginary troops and anticipating threats. "Excellent," Ethan said after one practice exercise. "You've started seeing the battlefield in 3 dimensions. That's something even the best Virelian generals sometimes miss." Lyrea blushed slightly. "You make it sound so simple." "Simple is effective," he replied. The training did not go unnoticed. Palace guards, initially skeptical of the human, began to see the strength in his methods. Ethan taught them how to coordinate patrols more efficiently, set up early warning systems, and use their psychic abilities in combination with environmental advantages. Virelians were traditionally confident in their innate skills, but Ethan's strategies showed them that even small adjustments could save lives. One day, while walking through the central training grounds, Ethan noticed that some of the defense turrets on the city's outer walls were outdated. "If the Zarkons attack, they'll know exactly where to strike," he said. "We need to move these, add some hidden ones, and link them to motion sensors. That way, they won't know what's coming." Lyrea considered the plan carefully. It was risky, her advisors had never recommended such changes, but she trusted Ethan. Together, they reprogrammed the defense systems and camouflaged the turrets among the crystal towers. The project took days, but by the end, the palace felt stronger, safer, and more prepared. While training continued, Lyrea also spent time learning about Earth from Ethan. He described life on a small, blue planet with oceans and forests, where humans faced challenges with creativity rather than power alone. Lyrea found herself fascinated by the human approach to problems, where persistence, teamwork, and courage often mattered more than raw strength. "You make it sound so easy," she said one evening as they studied maps of Virelia and projected Zarkon movements onto a crystal table. Ethan smiled. "It's not easy, but humans have a habit of adapting, even when everything seems against them. You just need to find the way to adapt, too." The princess felt a warmth of reassurance in his words. For the first time, she felt that she could lead her people through the coming storm, not alone, but with guidance and partnership. Then came the first test. Scouts reported a Zarkon reconnaissance team near the eastern forests, testing the palace's defenses. Lyraya and Ethan prepared immediately. Using their newly developed tactics, they coordinated a small group of elite soldiers to intercept the scouts. Ethan's strategies involved careful observation, use of cover, and anticipating the enemy's movements. When the Zarkons arrived, they found not an unprepared target, but a trap. Motion sensors triggered hidden turrets, and psychic signals from the Virelians created false illusions of larger forces. The scouts were startled, confused, and forced to retreat with minimal damage. Lyraya watched from above, her heart racing. "They didn't expect this," she whispered. "They never do," Ethan said calmly. "You're learning, Princess. Your people are learning. That is what will matter most when the real attack comes." The success boosted the morale of the palace forces. Soldiers who had doubted the human's advice now trusted him implicitly, following his instructions without hesitation. Lyraya felt pride swell in her chest, not for her own actions alone, but for the unity and strength they were building together. As the days passed, Ethan helped Lyraya uncover more of the Zarkon weakness. Through intercepted communications and careful observation, they realized the Zarkons relied heavily on rigid strategies. Their forces were strong, but predictable. Ethan suggested ways to exploit this: decoy movements, surprise flanking, and coordinated attacks that combined Virelian psychic powers with human ingenuity. "Humans call it thinking outside the box," Ethan explained. "You're not fighting their way. You're fighting your way." Lyraya nodded, understanding the importance. This partnership was no longer about survival, it was about strategy, intelligence, and turning fear into strength. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Lyraya and Ethan stood atop the highest crystal spire. The palace lay below them, glowing softly with the light of energy conduits. "You have changed me," Lyraya said quietly. "I feel stronger. Not because of my power, but because of your guidance." Ethan shook his head. "You've always had the strength. You just needed a different way to see it. Humans, we're good at showing possibilities. But the real work? That comes from you." Lyraya looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, not just as a human, not just as a stranger, but as someone who believed in her potential, and through that belief, made her believe in herself. Suddenly, a sharp alert echoed through the spire's communication system. Zarkon scouts had been spotted closer than ever before. The signs were clear. The full invasion would not be long. Lyraya turned to Ethan. "We must prepare our people, not just for defense, but for survival." Ethan nodded. "We'll do more than survive. We'll make sure they underestimate humans at their peril." The palace buzzed with activity. Soldiers trained harder, defenses were reinforced, and new plans were put into motion. Lyraya led from the front, guided by Ethan's calm reasoning and practical strategies. Together, they turned a scared, cautious city into a coordinated, confident force, ready to face the Zarkon Empire. As night fell over Virelia, the forests glowed, and the crystal towers reflected the starlight. Lyraya felt a new sense of clarity and purpose. With Ethan by her side, she was no longer alone. She had a partner, a teacher, and a friend. Together, they had built a foundation that might save their world. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the human stranger who had become the strength of an alien princess. The final test, the real battle, was coming, but for the first time, Lyraya was ready. The morning light of Virelia's twin suns reflected sharply off the floating crystal towers, scattering rainbow-colored beams across the city. Despite the beauty, an air of tension lingered. Scouts had returned with alarming news. The Zarkon Empire had mobilized a full invasion fleet. Ships larger than Virelia's tallest towers were approaching fast, bristling with weapons that had destroyed entire planets. The hum of the city's energy systems seemed louder today, a nervous pulse echoing the anxiety of its people. Princess Lyraya stood atop the highest spire, violet eyes scanning the horizon. She was no longer the uncertain girl who had first encountered Ethan, the human stranger. Now, she was confident, decisive, and focused. Mapping out strategies in his mind. His presence was steadying, reminding her that no matter the odds, they had a plan, and they had hope. "We must hold them off," Lyraya said, her voice clear. "Every citizen must play a role. Every defense must be ready. We cannot falter." Ethan nodded. "And they will not expect what we've prepared. Remember, they rely on numbers and brute force, but we have strategy, creativity, and adaptability. That will be our edge." The Zarkon fleet appeared first as tiny specks in the distance, then grew into towering shapes of dark metal and gleaming weaponry. Panic rippled through some of the city's guards, but Lyraya remained composed. Her psychic abilities allowed her to sense the enemy's movements, but she combined them now with Ethan's strategies. Traps, decoys, and coordinated strikes designed to confuse and divide. "Deploy the decoys," Ethan ordered. "Use the illusionary shields along the eastern corridor. Make them think the city is weaker than it is." Soldiers obeyed, moving like shadows through the crystal city, guided by the human's calm voice. Lyraya followed with her psychic powers, projecting false images of troops and energy shields. The Zarkons, trained to detect such tactics among their own species, were caught off guard. "They don't know what's real and what's false," Lyraya whispered. A surge of pride warmed her chest. Her people were learning, and they trusted her. She had become the leader she had once feared she could not be. The first wave of Zarkon ships attacked. Energy beams sliced through the sky, and explosions lit the crystal towers. Soldiers reacted with precision, using the new tactics Ethan had taught them. Hidden turrets fired from unexpected angles, intercepting the enemy's strikes. Virelian psychic warriors manipulated the terrain, creating illusions of moving battalions that forced Zarkon ships to waste ammunition. Ethan moved among the defenders, coordinating movements and adjusting strategies in real time. His intelligence, combined with Lyraya's powers, turned the tide of the first skirmish. Even the seasoned palace guards were impressed. They whispered to one another. The human was no ordinary stranger, he was a genius of strategy. Amid the chaos, Lyraya noticed a group of Zarkon command ships attempting to flank the city from the southern forests. She turned to Ethan. "They're trying to bypass our defenses," she shouted. "I've already predicted it," Ethan replied. "We'll use the forest to our advantage. Lead them through the traps we set yesterday. Use the terrain to slow them down." With precise coordination, Lyraya guided her forces to channel the enemy into narrow corridors of forest. Motion sensors triggered hidden energy nets, and psychic illusions made the attackers believe they were surrounded by overwhelming numbers. The Zarkons, confused and frustrated, lost formation and momentum. In the heart of the battle, Ethan made a bold move. He piloted a small craft into the enemy lines, targeting key machinery and communication hubs. Using his quick thinking and knowledge of technology, he disabled several Zarkon ships, forcing them to retreat temporarily. His courage inspired the defenders, showing them that even one individual could make a critical difference. From her vantage point, Lyraya watched Ethan's actions with a mixture of admiration and gratitude. He had come to her world as a stranger, yet here he was, risking himself to protect her people. She realized then that strength was not only about power or psychic ability. True strength came from courage, ingenuity, and the will to act when it mattered most. As the battle raged, Lyraya led her people with determination. Her voice echoed across the city, issuing commands, inspiring soldiers, and rallying the citizens. The partnership between her psychic abilities and Ethan's tactical mind created a perfect harmony. Where one faltered, the other compensated. Together, they formed a force greater than the sum of their parts. Hours passed. The sky above Virelia was a dazzling display of energy blasts, flying ships, and crystal reflections. The Zarkons, confident in their superiority, began to falter as the combination of Virelian defense and human ingenuity continually outsmarted them. Finally, the decisive moment came. The Zarkon fleet attempted a massive concentrated attack, aiming for the palace itself. Lyria and Ethan had anticipated this. Using the decoys, hidden turrets, and psychic illusions, they funneled the attacking forces into a trap. Energy nets, immobilized ships, and hidden turrets fired precise shots at weak points. Lyria's psychic power amplified the defenders' coordination, making every movement seamless. Ethan, piloting a small squadron of patrol ships, struck at the enemy command center, severing communication lines. The Zarkon ships became disorganized. Their advance slowed, and their morale shattered. The invaders, who had expected an easy victory, were forced to retreat in disarray. The aftermath was silent, but overwhelming. Crystal shards glimmered in the soft light of the twin suns. The city had survived, largely intact, thanks to the careful planning, strategy, and bravery of its people, and the human who had taught them a new way to fight. Lyria stood atop the palace spire, looking over the city. Her violet eyes were filled with relief, pride, and recognition of something she had not understood before: the value of trust and partnership. She turned to Ethan. "We did it," she said softly. "Your strategies, your courage, they saved us all." Ethan smiled, brushing ash from his clothes. "You saved yourself, Princess. I just helped you see how strong you already were." Lyria nodded. She realized he was right. Strength was not just in weapons or psychic power, it was in intelligence, in courage, in trust. And humans had a way of showing strength, in ways no alien could have predicted. In the days that followed, Virelia's people celebrated their victory. The story of the human stranger who had helped the princess spread throughout the city. Ethan became more than a visitor. He became a symbol of ingenuity, courage, and the unexpected strength of humanity. Lyria held a council with her advisors, who had been skeptical of Ethan at first. Now, they bowed in respect, acknowledging that his guidance had made the difference between survival and destruction. "You have changed the course of our history," one elder said, bowing to Ethan. He simply shook his head. "I came here as a stranger. The real work was done by the princess and her people. I just showed them possibilities." "True," Lyria smiled. "And sometimes, seeing possibilities is enough to inspire greatness." Weeks passed. Virelia recovered from the attack, rebuilding damaged structures and reinforcing defenses. Lyria continued to train with Ethan, honing new tactics and strengthening her people. The bond between human and princess deepened, not romantic, but one of mutual respect, trust, and friendship. At night, they often stood together on the palace spire, looking at the stars above. The twin moons of Virelia reflected in their eyes, and the hum of the crystal city beneath them was a quiet reminder of the strength they had built together. "You know," Lyria said one evening, "I never imagined that a stranger could become such an important part of my life." Ethan chuckled softly. "Humans have a way of showing up when they're needed. And sometimes, we just need someone who believes in us." "You believed in me," she said, her voice soft but certain. "I just helped you see it in yourself," Ethan replied. And with that, they looked out at the horizon, knowing that together, they had reshaped the destiny of Virelia. The city was safe, the people were inspired, and a legend had been born. The human who became the strength of an alien princess. Virelia would not only survive, it would thrive. And across the stars, whispers of the courageous human and the wise princess began to spread. A single human had arrived as a stranger, but in the hearts of the Virelians, he became a hero, a teacher, and a symbol of hope. For Princess Lyria, the lesson was clear. Strength could come from anywhere, and even the most unexpected ally could become the foundation of greatness. Humanity, with its courage, ingenuity, and resilience, had proven that it could stand beside any civilization and even lift it to new heights. As the twin suns set, painting the city in shades of gold and violet, Ethan and Lyria stood side by side, ready for whatever future challenges might come. Together, they had faced impossible odds, and together, they had won a battle that would be remembered across the galaxy.